I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the weirdest section of shonen battle manga I've ever covered. Mr. Akatami was sitting in his lab for years cooking up absolute heat with his previous 200 or so chapters, rereading Hunter x Hunter and other goated manga, rest in peace Akira Toriyama, you absolute legend, and taking crazy inspiration. Then he decided to read a few too many doujins. Dude went off the deep end with this one and created one of the most what the f am I even reading fights? Of course, subscribe if you are new around here on that grind to 250k subs right now, and also be sure to leave a like if you do enjoy the video. Either way, enough of me rambling on, sit back and relax as we get into the amazing world of Jujutsu Kaisen. In the Lake Gosho colony inside of the Iwate prefecture, a new, incarnated female lands on the lake roadside and begins to worry about what the hell Kenjaku was up to. Boosting it into a nearby forest, she questions why the new rule was one that was against murder. All of the rules so far were ones that forced everyone to fight, so she wonders if it's because the game was progressing too slowly with all of the other rules, and that's why Kenjaku sent troops into different colonies. Unable to come to a solid conclusion, she screams out that it's cruel to give incarnated players like her a second chance at life only to snatch it away. Suddenly, a slime-like curse then falls down from an overhang and lands on the lady's head, beginning to suffocate her. Absolutely chilling up in his tree, Big Kenny tells the woman that he has no emotional attachment towards incarnated players. Glancing up, the woman attacks him by twisting her hair into a drill and firing it towards him, though Kenjaku vanishes, causing it to strike the tree. Unable to get free herself, the curse on her head then solidifies, weighing her down and causing the young lady to fall to the ground. As she desperately tries to remove the curse, Kenjaku pops down from his perch while commenting about how he can't help but feel somewhat wasteful, before flicking the curse with his finger, transferring a shockwave through that liquefies the woman. Standing over the remains, he explains how he is able to track all of the incarnated players through their cursed objects and awaken players through their cursed seals. That aside, surprisingly the incarnated players were also reluctant to leave their colonies, since adapting to society and getting hunted down weren't exactly the greatest of options either. Pointing out that the girl's already in the Shadow Realm, Kenjaku is then approached by Iori Hazenoki, who mockingly asks if the monk talks to himself due to living for so damn long. Kenny jokes that it's actually because his circle of friends is shrinking quickly, but offers the chance for Hazenoki to join his group, who sarcastically accepts. Mentioning that he's glad, however, if he wants to be his friend, Kenjaku says that Hazenoki must fulfill two conditions. He must never bore him, and he must be his equal. Realizing that Kenjaku thought he was serious, Hazenoki reveals that he was joking. Dude's over dealing with long-haired men, much to Kenny's disappointment. Not really concerned, the old dog takes out his phone and watches the conclusion to Gojo's battle against Sukuna. Laying backwards in a pile of leaves, he commends Sukuna for extending the target of his curse technique, allowing him to win. Hazenoki, who also pulled out his Nokia to see what happened, is disappointed that Gojo lost, since now he has no backup here. Beginning to roast the decision that Hazenoki showed up here, Kenny reveals that he actually used barrier techniques to conceal curse spirits around himself and Shinjuku. These curses can do a few special things. Firstly, through curse energy aggregate, they can act as surveillance, measuring the total curse energy volume of all of the sorcerers in the city. This allows him to monitor every single sorcerer, even if one leaves the area, especially obviously Yuta Rokotsu, as he would obviously know due to the amount of curse energy leaving that colony. Additionally, he also shares vision with the curse spirit, so that he can track Maki, who possesses no curse energy, and Wee Wee, who, like myself actually predicted earlier in my curse techniques video, possesses a curse technique that allows him to teleport. Obviously it was pretty freaking obvious when he disappeared from Shibuya and ended up landing in the frickin' middle of Malaysia, how else is he gonna just travel that distance? But either way, calling him a coward, Hazenoki asks if the old school Gooner lacks confidence in his abilities to fight him. Laughing, Kenny instead states that he was just saying the two of them are now alone. Rushing through the trees from his left like a torrent of water, a swarm of cursed spirits then burst out of the forest and charge the young sorcerer down. Having tossed a tooth into all of their curses, it violently explodes, causing a massive effusion of curse energy in the forest that destroys all of the monsters. Walking forwards, a large curse then appears to his side, causing Hazenoki to remove his eye and throw it in the curse's direction. Falling for an unseen trap, and due to his regenerating eye, a distracted Hazenoki is attacked by a bunch of small flying curses. Approaching from the distance, Kenjaku explains that he was aware of Hazenoki's ability to use reverse curse technique, which is why he chose to target the man's head. Still, he points out that even shoddy incarnations like Hazenoki had a trick or two in store. Sadly, they weren't enough, and these small curses managed to stab their nostril-like blades through Hazenoki's neck, preventing him from healing his body from that point downwards. Resentfully, Hazenoki asks Kenjaku what the hell his endgame is here. Having originally thought that he actually explained it all, Kenjaku goes over how he needs to kill all of the players to end the killing game, then in turn it will trigger a binding vow. This vow will then allow him to assimilate all of the Japanese population into Tengen. Hazenoki, barely able to breathe or understand what the hell Kenjaku is even talking about, can only listen as the monk reveals that he believes life is about seeing what one hasn't seen, and confirming what one thinks is interesting in their own imagination is also interesting in real life. Still unable to understand, Hazenoki asks the geezer why he doesn't just stare at the shits he takes every morning for inspiration before finally being killed. Sometime later, Kenjaku notices a certain sorcerer leaving Shinjuku. Moments after that, our GOAT. Don't know how he lasts longer than Kashimo here, but he's the GOAT for sure. Fumihiko Takaba is seen running down the road towards Kenjaku while expressing his relief for finally arriving in Hakodate. Pointing out that it's actually Awate that they're in, Kenjaku then summons curses to attack Takaba, all while wondering why the sorcerer sent the comedian of all people to fight him alone. As Kenny suspected, the curses seemingly kill Takaba with ease, making him lament over just how little interest he has in these awakened players. From his perspective now, and with the exception of Hiromi Higuruma, the rest are just fillers used to bulk up the numbers. Screaming out though as the smoke clears, Takaba asks if the otaku monk was trying to kill him or something, before threatening to have him thrown in jail. Dropping his jaw, utterly perplexed, Kenjaku can't seem to understand what this is. He knows his attack worked, but it was almost forced to have no effect. Gassing himself up, Takaba states that there are all kinds of exciting things in life. However, what he finds most thrilling is when the side character steals the entire freaking show. So, back before the battle between Gojo and Sukuna took place, Angel discussed the idea of ambushing Kenjaku with everyone else. Since even if they defeat Sukuna, it wouldn't matter if Kenjaku achieves his goal of merging the Japanese population with Tengen. Hikari notes that, judging from the rules added by Kenjaku, purging all of the players and ending the culling game is most likely a condition for the merger. Wondering why they need to even worry then, Yuta points out that since him and Hikari are also players, it'll prevent Kenjaku from achieving his goals, so long as they are fighting Sukuna. Internally thinking himself, Kusakabe instead suggests the possibility that defeating Sukuna comes at the costs of all of their lives, and there are also other sorcerers like Miwa who were just too weak to participate in this fight. Rest in peace, Miwa, and her legendary strength that Ronin thought she might have had, but either way, playing devil's advocate, Angel suggests the possibility of Gojo losing his fight and Kenjaku ambushing them right after, which Hikari admits would suck since they'll be stuck fighting Sukuna. Continuing, she adds that even if Kenny doesn't ambush them and they achieve a narrow victory against Sukuna, they would be wide open to an attack at any time. Due to this, Kusakabe thinks it's best if they send Maki on a surprise visit, but adds that it would be unwise to divide their forces before fighting Sukuna. Additionally, the sorcerer they end up choosing would have to be more competent than a grade 1 in order to even stand a chance against Kenjaku. Thinking of a certain comedian, Angel nominates the half-naked Takaba, much to Yuta, Hikari, and Kusakabe's confusion. Only thing Kusakabe even remembers about the dude is the time his nut slipped out the first time they met. Putting that aside for now, Angel lets everyone know that what she's about to say could affect Takaba's technique in a negative way, so asks the sorcerers present to make sure they never tell anyone. Going to tell everyone exactly how the technique works, and then flashes back to the midst of battle between both of the world's mentally deranged sorcerers. Smirking and telling Mullet Boy to listen to him, Takaba manifests an American flag bandana and a pair of sunglasses on Kenny's head. Goated Gege throwback to Bandit Keith from Yu-Gi-Oh right there.
Mess with Michael Bay and you mess with America. I want you guys out of my country by tomorrow morning. Brains. Every country in the world belongs to America.
Baffled, the ancient sorcerer rips off his new attire and concludes that Takaba's curse technique is probably one that allows him to manifest his imagination into reality. Kenny is able to understand that if he does not take extreme care, then this half-naked dude could render the vast amount of knowledge he obtained over the past 1,000 years void. asking who exactly the person in front of him is. Takaba, Fumihiko, introduces himself as Nabe's very own comedian, who made it into the first round of the previous year's P1 tournament. Awkwardly, Kenjaku asks if the P1 he's speaking of is a hilarious tournament notorious for only being funny due to how bad it was. Remarking that it was only a joke, Kenjaku clarifies that he's already predicted all of his one-liners to do with his P1 performance, annoying the sorcerer. Knowing that his opponent was from Nabe now, Kenjaku poses that he must have performed with the pony then. Mentally resetting himself, Takaba relays that while most people assume that about him, the reason he chose Nabe is because of a comedian he admires a ton from the Cackling Dogs era. Baffled, Kenny questions why not vocabulary, making the newly awakened sorcerer think that the two of them are weirdly hitting it off because this dude also likes comedy. Breaking the flow up for a moment, Takaba questions why he is doing this. Why is he forcing people to kill each other and trying to make everyone merge into some sort of fusion monster? Tired of honestly having to repeat himself at this point, even though it's legit like the second time bro's actually even had to do it, Kenjaku summarizes his motivation as intellectual curiosity. Getting a flash of genius, Takaba wonders if he'd stop if he found something more entertaining to do. Not even knowing what to say, Takaba then points out how he doesn't need to say anything as it's written all over his face. Looking through the random mirror that just appeared in his hand, the ancient monk angrily reacts at the markings on his face. Letting violence run rampant through his mind, Takaba lets Kenny know that he's left him no other choice. He's going to release a one-liner. It's royalty free, so I'm using the exact line as many times as I want as advised by Father Gige in his holy scriptures, as you guys can see here. Waving his hand through the air, Takaba dives into his pose and says, "Don't marry me. I don't want you as my Wi-Fi," but fails horribly and Kenny instead flips the scenario on its head. In a flash, he accurately guesses that Takaba thought up the joke when his phone automatically connected to a cafe's slow Wi-Fi. Remarking that he's spot on, Kenny continues and points out that the joke wouldn't work well for an audience watching from their TV at home. Instead of being a dick to our boy though, he properly criticizes Takaba's joke for having no setup, causing him to think that having his joke torn apart logically by someone who understands it is a true stab to his heart. Randomly, the duo then appear in a room, and Kenny, who's now taking on the role of teacher, explains that Takaba is far too self-involved. Stuck in darkness, Takaba corrects his earlier statements and now thinks that doing comedy with him isn't fun at all. Finishing his criticisms by telling the young comedian to craft his set with an audience in mind, Kenjaku rips Takaba back to reality by slamming him with an elbow, sending the sorcerer crashing into the forest behind him. Laughing out loud, Yuji's mum notes that he felt his attack land this time, allowing him to confirm that for Takaba's technique to activate, he needs to have confidence in himself. As Kenjaku pursues Joe Rogan down, the latter dismisses his criticism by calling Kenny nothing but an amateur posing as an expert who's never even been on stage. To him, his half-assed criticism doesn't matter at all. As long as everyone else thinks his jokes are funny, that's all that matters. Irked, Kenny just states that it's pretty damn rich coming from him. Frustrated and almost breaking down over his retort, Takaba demands to have a staring contest with Kenjaku, where whoever laughs first loses. Quickly snapping poses, the duo make funny faces at the same time, with Takaba sadly laughing first, allowing Kenny to pop in and land a powerful right punch to the head that sends him flying. Punching the ground, Takaba begins to wonder if this man is possibly funnier than him. He knows if you think about how he's a fair-skinned immortal dressed in a monk cosplay while also growing out his hair, it's pretty damn funny. However, the scar on his forehead as well, most would assume he's overdoing it, but Takaba is starting to feel like it only makes him a funnier person. Regaining focus and remembering his colleague's words, he tries to regain his confidence and collect himself. Sadly, as he crawls forwards, falls silent as he sees Hazenoki's body sprawled out in front of him. Horrified, stalled, frozen in place, Kenjaku approaches Takaba from behind and asks, "What's up? Why doesn't he laugh? After all, he's a comedian, isn't he?" Sweating with apprehension, man is just over all of this. He knows that doing comedy with Kenny isn't fun at all. Plus, if they can't even laugh at this messed up situation, why would anyone else? In a time already long gone, we see Takaba chastise his partner for being late to their performance rehearsal. His partner nonchalantly apologizes, but Takaba notices the smell of alcohol on him, making him seethe with discontent. Putting that aside, Takaba jumps straight into a segment of their upcoming performance, but is quickly let down after seeing that his partner hasn't remembered a single line. Annoyed that he does not give a damn about anything, Takaba demands an apology from his partner. Not listening to him though, his partner lets him know that it's actually his fault. He never comes out to drink with anyone and doesn't even laugh at the other comic sets from their local stage. It's actually thanks to him that the older students leave them alone and allow them to do their own thing here. Just clarifying that he's hearing this correctly, Takaba asks if he goes out drinking all night and shows up late just for his own sake, to which his partner arrogantly confirms. Clenching his fist, Takaba screams that they don't even perform twice a year, and when they do, it's old-ass, shitty, out-of-date jokes. Yet, every damn time his partner opens its mouth, it's only to yap about which girl he's currently slamming or the mysterious connections he totally doesn't even have. Grabbing him by the scruff of his shirt, Takaba tells him to use his goddamn brain at least once. Replying that he's totally just jealous because he's popular with the ladies, Takaba punches his partner to the ground and tells him that he wants to take comedy seriously. Rubbing his bruised cheek, his partner just replies that doing comedy with him isn't fun at all. After all, if they can't even laugh at this stuff, why would anyone else? Sometime later, Takaba, now rocking an afro, reads a critically unfavorable review about his performance. Despite being disheartened, his colleague tells him that it's impossible to make everyone in the audience laugh and even says that he didn't hate his set. Another day, and while rehearsing a performance, Takaba's new partner informs him that he plans on quitting. People their age have already climbed the corporate ladder, they have wives, kids, and can provide for all of them. Standing there in a modified ballerina costume, his partner questions how long they can keep this act up. Later on in his apartment, Takaba's previous partner's words ring throughout his mind. He thought he'd have made it in life, but here he is again as a lone wolf comedian. In all reality, he wished he could have at least been a regular on a sketch show or an MC on an idol show. Comedy superfans like himself know that that work is often looked down on, but he knows it's a rather solid job. He remembers his response to his partner's last question, which is to do comedy until he's told every joke he possibly can. Questioning himself why he became a comedian again, he remembers that he was the kind of kid who was serious and cold towards others. This in turn made most other kids dislike him. He was lonely and wanted to change that about himself, so he put all of his efforts towards making people laugh. In the end, everyone laughed and he made them all realize he wasn't such a bad person. Over time, he made more and more friends, however, he was never able to find a partner to make jokes with. Sitting alone in his abode, Takaba watches a comedy duo joke about being unable to work together. However, they actually weren't being serious and the realization strikes a chord within our boy. Slurping back his noodles as tears form in his eyes, Takaba concludes that the reason he wanted to be a comedian was because he wanted people to know him better. Then they'd think he's funny and in turn, he wouldn't be so lonely. Sitting in front of his younger self at school now, he hears him ask what taking comedy seriously even is. He's pretty sure people just want to see him get all goofy, but the current Takaba states that he doesn't think that's what's important, as it really has nothing to do with an audience. A little bummed out, his younger version then asks if doing comedy seriously is fun, and why is he even a comedian in the first place? With a smile, Takaba explains that he became a comedian because he wanted everyone to get to know him better, yet he internally questions why he dismissed Kenny for not laughing at his joke and realizes that his colleague's advice about not needing to make everyone laugh was not telling him to give up. However, in order to protect himself, he chose to interpret it that way. In doing so, he stopped confronting the laughs head on and somewhere along the way, stopped taking comedy seriously because he didn't want to get hurt. Flashing back to the forest, Kenjaku rushes towards Takaba when all of a sudden he stops dead in his tracks. In front of him, Fumihiko Takaba bows down, blowing Kenny away with his perfect form, a true prostration. The form is impeccable. Kenny himself took years upon years, and not until his late 20s did he achieve a similar level. Stopping himself though upon realizing that he's getting caught up in the moment, Kenny then watches as Takaba profusely apologizes and exposes all of his insecurities. He doesn't think it's fine that Kenny didn't find his jokes funny, even if everyone else did. He just didn't want to feel pain, so he put him down to protect himself. Even if 99 out of 100 people are laughing, Takaba still won't be satisfied. He no longer cares if he's a stubborn loser, he just wants to make that last person laugh, which is why, with his newfound resolve, Takaba screams to make Kenny laugh so damn hard he pukes his guts out as that's his brand of comedy. Taking things up a notch, Kenjaku summons the special grade rebel spirit, Okuro Otake, but it is instantly killed as Truck-kun comes flying out of absolutely nowhere, flattening the monster. Acting as a drunk driver, Takaba blames Kenjaku for jumping into the middle of the road and getting struck by the vehicle. Reappearing as a police officer now, Kenny strolls up to the scene with a few men and asks if he happens to be under the influence. Proposing that he take a breathalyzer test, the officer insists he go ahead and huff into the bag. Unlike a normal test, the bag used here actually has a freaking goldfish inside, and if it dies, Takaba will be arrested. Noticing something fishy though, Takaba explains that the goldfish is already half dead. Now dressed as doctors, the two rush the goldfish to the hospital operating room. Kenjaku immediately attempts to resuscitate it with a defibrillator. Sadly, man's aim is worse than Miu's, and he connected with Takaba, electrifying him. Ultimately, the duo, along with all of the planet's modern medicine, was unable to make it in time, leaving behind only the fish's skeleton. Takaba asks Kenjaku, now dressed as Kaori Itadori wearing a nurse's outfit, to gather all of the nurses who are madly in love with him since he is now depressed. Fumi refuses and even slashes at Takaba despite the doctor's insistence that he is totally depressed. Screaming and asking what the hell is wrong with him, Takaba knows that this isn't how you're meant to treat a mentally broken person. Deciding to settle their differences with rock, paper, scissors, the two get out of their hospital fit and return to their original outfit, while simultaneously singing the rock, paper, scissors song. What am I even talking about right now? Snapping around, the two attack each other with their fingers, inserting them into each of their noses. Driven back and bleeding from his nose, Kenjaku realizes that Takaba's innate technique, comedian, does not only manifest things and force him to compel according to the user's imagination, but also integrates his own thoughts to create a feedback loop, essentially causing their souls to resonate. Moving to another location, the two then appear in a mountainous area, already in the middle of a game show. Looking at his opponent, Takaba warns him that he won't do any lame bits like getting quiz show questions wrong, much to Kenjaku's glee as he dislikes foolish idiots who act like complete fools. The host of the game show then starts with the first question, asking which historical figure created the phrase, "It might be interesting, it might not." Who can say? Kenjaku hurriedly hits the buzzer and answers Takasugi Shinsaku. However, the host fakes out Kenjaku by continuing the question with an unrelated second part, asking what is the term for a group of subatomic particles held together by a strong interaction. Not having a freaking clue when it comes to this shit, Takaba is unable to answer. Kenny though, in all his years of knowledge, is able to correctly answer with a hadron. Yet, he is also quickly told he hit the buzzer too quickly. Pulling a face, Kenny mocks Takaba, asking if he's the son of an optometrist or something. Cutting them off, the host then announces the second question, which one is harder to speak to others about? Being formally endorsed by a university or writing your own university recommendation letter? In a flash, the two sorcerers confidently rush towards the doors. Snapping his head to the right, Takaba suddenly hears someone crying for help. Crossing the road in front of him, he sees a cat making the dash, even though the signal's still red. Putting his life on the line, he rushes to save it from an oncoming car. Even more bizarrely though, the cat morphs into freaking Kenjaku, surprising Takaba, who is subsequently hit by that car. Again, the environment then suddenly changes to the ocean, and instead of Kenny as a cat, Takaba has taken the role and is now drowning in the surf. Surfing his way over, Kenny vows to save him. However, Takaba, who's now on the back of a jet ski, boosts over, catching up and hitting him in the head with it. I just honestly need to take a moment here to recover, because it makes no sense when I'm reading it half the time. Like, what in the world am I even explaining? This fight is just so whack and so many random things are going on. I guess it just goes with the entire, comedian side of things. It's not exactly, super funny for everyone from Western culture because a lot of the humor is Japanese, but I still find a lot of the stuff that is going on here so just, bizarre that it's funny to me. Either way, moving forward, as the two of them play in the water, splashing each other, Kenjaku thinks about how much fun he is having and expresses how he is glad that he started the culling game. Noticing that Takaba's technique is influencing his thoughts, Kenny grabs Takaba's head and tries drowning him in the water. However, Takaba notices something. This isn't water they're playing in. Oh my lord, Gege, this could have got whack real quick. Luckily, it turned out to be Fanta, surprising the duo. While smiling in battle, Kenjaku notes that if this goes on, he may lose. For Takaba, these are nothing but simulations, but the damage he's taking through them is all too real. Realizing that the fight cannot be won with brute force, and the only way it can end is when Takaba's desire for comedy is satisfied, Kenjaku himself changes the scene. Now dressed in some slick looking suits, Kenny checks with his boy that he's good to go. Ready for whatever lays ahead, the two then walk out on stage in front of a large seated audience. After greeting the audience and briefly bantering between each other, Kenny introduces them as Pin and Chance. Put it together and you get Pin-chan, the easy to remember duo. Beginning their performance, Takaba asks if Kenjaku knows the tale of Momotaro, to which the latter responds that he doesn't. Telling his partner to not play dumb, Takaba knows everyone was told the story when they were little. Breaking down though, Kenny tearfully reveals that he wasn't kidding. He was raised by a single mother who was always busy and never had the time for him. Baffled, Takaba apologizes for hitting a touchy subject. Still, Kenjaku reveals that his mother loved him nonetheless and always read him stories. One of her favorite was even Momotaro. Angry that Kenjaku played him for a fool, Takaba asks why he lied earlier, to which he reveals that he always wanted attention due to his busy mother. Getting up in his grill, he calls out the monk for turning the mood hostile from the get-go. He even notes that he picked up on his sneaky little mouth clicks from earlier, so what exactly is his problem? Takaba explains that he is very mood sensitive, so he wanted to try and diffuse the tension by telling old stories everyone loves and knows. Claiming to be too dumb of a person to understand, Kenny asks if he'd instead prefer a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant for friends. Grabbing his chin, he then wonders if Momotaro was actually the biological son of the elderly couple from the story. He bets they probably ate those silly old magical peaches to become young again before getting it on. Stunned with the random vulgar direction Kenny decided to take the set, Takaba can only reply that, now he mentions it, it kinda does make sense. The two then begin performing a skit, with Kenjaku acting as Momotaro and Takaba as his grandmother. Kenjaku bids Takaba farewell as he leaves to fight demons, but Takaba stops him and tries to give him some kibidangos before he leaves. Literally saying "Roffle," Kenjaku refuses due to disliking food touched by someone else. Still, our boy demands that he take them. Noticing how good the dumplings look, Kenjaku passively-aggressively thanks his grandmother for spending a lot of time making them due to living easy on a pension paid for by the young generation. He expresses his joy for not having to see his grandmother anymore and insults her age as he leaves, but not before wishing her a long, good life. Takaba, initially angered by the insult, immediately forgives him after hearing the final comment and remarks that the language sure is strange with the young folk these days. Dropping down to the floor, Kenny acts as if he's encountered a random dog, noting that it's a golden retriever. Not happy, Takaba asks him to change the dog to a Japanese breed, otherwise it just wouldn't make sense for their audience. Not listening to him, bro just pretends as if he's eating some award-winning dumplings. Playing devil's advocate though, Takaba jokes how every single fried chicken joint wins that, and it would honestly be more surprising to find one that hasn't. Curious, Kenny looks over at him and asks if it's meant to feed a dog a kibidango, causing Takaba to remark that it's probably a little bit late to care about realism. Believing that the dumplings may have onions though, which are poisonous to dogs, Kenjaku decides to not feed them to it, which Takaba agrees. Continuing the set, Kenjaku then acts as if he found a phone number on the dog's collar and calls its owner. Chatting with the owner, he's informed that the dog is in fact a Labrador. Finishing the call, Kenjaku says that the owner lives in Nerimiya, which is a 30-minute walk away. When Takaba asks about the initial plans he had, which was to fight demons, Kenjaku decides to call the demon lair to cancel the reservation. Upon hearing that he actually needs to pay a cancellation fee, Kenjaku decides to send the monkey and pheasant to attack ahead of the main party. Takaba stops him though, advising him that the monkey and pheasant are gonna get their ass beat. Replying that he's the one who doesn't get it, Kenjaku explains that the pheasant has air supremacy and at the least is gonna carpet bomb them with shit. Getting amped over how dope the one and only shit carpet bomb is, the duo then ponder whether they should return the dog, who Kenny named John, to its owner or spare the monkey and pheasant's lives. Takaba chimes in that the latter choice is the obvious answer. Completely changing the joke scenario though, Kenny notes that first things first, they're gonna ice that stupid ass pheasant. Curious as to why, he explains that keeping an anxious pet owner worried feels very unpheasant. Yeah, man, pull yourself together. Abruptly, Kenjaku asks Takaba if he's all good. Takaba says that he is, but he knows it's almost curtains on the show of his dreams. Up until now, he personally felt like he wasn't even qualified to spell the word comedian, but on this stage, even Kenny's fangirls are making him happy. He truly wants to keep going, for this to never end. Smiling, Ken tells him to not cry as bro will spoil the mood. Getting close to each other, Takaba pats Kenny on the chest, forcing the imaginary scenario to end. Back in the forest now, Kenjaku looks over Takaba, who is laying on the ground dressed as a corpse. Looking over at Kenny with the stupidest grin on his face, Takaba thanks him, who, in return, tells his fellow comedian that he was freaking hilarious up on stage. Suddenly, Kenjaku senses no one other than him, Yuta Rikotsu, slipping behind him. Spinning and screaming out curse technique reversal anti-gravity, Kenny is quickly silenced as Yuta slices through the space in front of him. As the head then slowly begins to fall from its mantle, man just questions how the Helikotsu even got here. From his perspective, he knows the enormous amount of energy coming off the sorcerer should have been picked up by him. Upon looking over and seeing Takaba laying peacefully, pretending to be dead, Kenny realized that the comedian never wanted anyone interrupting the show and in turn prevented him from sensing Yuta. Still alive, cause technically this thing is just a brain at the end of the day, Kenjaku asks if this was their true plan from the very beginning. Explaining to him that it was, Yuta elaborates on what Hana was going to tell them all earlier on in this arc. It's impossible for Takaba to kill someone. Realizing how much sense that all makes, Kenny mutters that it's a shame for him to bow out before he finishes, but ominously declares that his will shall be inherited. Well, that there officially brings us to the very end of Kenjaku versus Takaba, and of course Yuta showing up at the end and ending his freaking party that he's had for the last 1,000 years or so. Dude is finally chilling with his missus in the Shadow Realm now, or supposedly chilling with Tengen in the Shadow Realm. I don't know how his will is going to get inherited with Sukuna, and Sukuna has possibly merged the entire Japanese population. I'm not sure how that's even going to happen now. What do you all think with like Kenjaku being wiped out in 3 panels by Yuta there? It's pretty crazy ways to end probably the biggest villain of the entire series, bar Sukuna obviously. Dude couldn't believe that his life was coming to an end, and it is kind of a sad way to see him go, but it does make sense in the terms of like Yuta probably wouldn't have been able to defeat him unless he, got him by surprise like this, and Kenny had all of these drastic measures to, make sure he didn't get taken by surprise by someone, yet throughout the entire battle that he had with Takaba managed to, reduce his senses that he had on the outside world enough so that Yuta was able to sneak in and then surprise him at the last second there. I did thoroughly enjoy, the fight that Takaba and Kenny had. There were some moments there that just left me like, what the hell am I even reading? What the hell is going on? The stuff with, Takaba seeing a cat in the middle of the road that then turns into Kenny, then turns into the ocean, and then all of a sudden Takaba's on the back of a jet ski and he hits Kenny, and there's just so many things that were going on, and I couldn't keep up with it at some points. I just had to take a moment and sit there and be like, what am I even reading? But either way, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you all did as well. Shout out to all of my amazing Patreons who have been supporting me a bunch recently. If you do want to get earlier access to all of my videos, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon, which I will leave a link to down in the description below. Of course, leave a like as well if you have enjoyed the video, as it really helps out with just pushing my content to a bunch of new amazing people. Plus, subscribe if you are new around here as well, on that grind to 250k subs right now, which would be absolutely dope to hit. So hopefully we can hit it at some point this year. And if I've seen some people asking for a house tour and everything, which to me, I'm just gonna be completely honest and stuff, I find I thank you, it's all thanks to you guys that I'm even where I am now, but I just find it so disingenuous to go out and record what I have, and I don't live in anything fancy. This is just a small house that I managed to purchase after saving pretty much everything that I earned off YouTube in the first 2 years or first year and a half, and then put it towards, a deposit on this house. And now I just have to hope that I don't lose it. And I would love to give you all a house tour, maybe on the Patreon I will, or something like that. But yeah, I just feel really disingenuous. And that's, at the same time, that's why I don't take a lot of sponsors here on my channel as well. I have taken obviously some in the past, and that was because I was saving up for this. And now after moving into this property, I also probably am going to have to take other sponsors just so that I can actually keep, paying my rent, and I say rent, paying my mortgage and all that kind of shit. It's part of life, and I know how much ads people already get on YouTube. I sit there every single day of my own life while I'm editing and watch YouTube videos, and the amount of ads on there is already just mental, and that's why I haven't done a lot of sponsors throughout the entire lifetime of this channel. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know. Maybe on the Patreon. I'd feel so awkward. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry for rambling on here and everything, but I do hope you all enjoyed the video. But for now, it's been your professional degenerate Diavolo, and I will see you all in a bit. Bye.